Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the most interactive wrestling show on the interweb. Welcome back to Wrestling with Omer. I'm your host, Omer Q. This is Wrestling with Omer, the most interactive wrestling show on the interweb. I just said that for all the live homies. Welcome to all the podcast homies who are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this today. Be sure to leave a 5-star review and be sure to go over to youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling and subscribe again to all the live homies. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We have a lot to talk about today. Matt Riddle, the artist, I should say, formerly known as Matt Riddle, was at the center of some controversy at JFK Airport earlier this week. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to be talking about CM Punk, Vince McMahon, WWE, and why today WWE changes forever. All that and more coming up on Wrestling with Omer live here for those on youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling. If you're tuning in live, y'all know what to do. Be sure to leave a chat. If you want to guarantee your question or statement is read out on the air, be sure to leave a super chat. Super chats are the best way to make sure I answer your questions at length and also support the show. Okay, so busy few weeks in professional wrestling. We're coming off the heels of the biggest wrestling show in ticketed, at least. It's the biggest wrestling show of all time. We're also coming off of a very what was an underrated card going into it, but absolutely shattered all expectations people had of it in All Out. We're coming off of a great WWE Payback show that saw the Judgment Day finally, by God, finally hold gold. Every single one of them is a champion in some way, shape, or form in WWE. So we've seen the crowning of the Judgment Day. We've seen a great WWE Payback pay-per-view. Trish Stratus in a steel cage for the first time. All that. And now today is a day that we never thought would come. Today is the final day. Tonight's Raw is the final Raw where we will see there we go, flubbing up already, where we will have the McMahon family, and most notably Vince McMahon, be a majority shareholder in WWE. For the longest time, for the better part of the last 50 years, Vince McMahon himself has been the guy in WWE. He has been the head honcho. It has been all him. And while he will still have a leadership position in this new company that is going to be formed as part of the merger with WWE, Endeavor, and UFC, TKO is going to be the trading name. Even though he has this position of power, he is not going to be the final say on all these things anymore. Triple H is as we all know, kind of Triple H has taken up a larger role in, I'm going to fix this real quick. Light is all messed up. There we go. All fixed up now. But like I was saying before, Triple H has taken up a much larger role as far as the day-to-day operations of creative. Triple H has really been where it starts and ends, I should say, for WWE for a while now. Vince McMahon was a part of creative, and you could argue that a lot of what we were seeing on TV was also influenced by him post-WrestleMania. We know that Ari Emanuel and Endeavor seem to be very fond of Vince, or at least publicly were very fond of Vince. And I do think that is more of a tactic rather than an actual feeling that they had about McMahon. I think that Ari Emanuel kind of told Vince McMahon what he wanted to hear in a certain way, and that is moving still. I'll be right back. Don't know what's happening here. And if you want to help us avoid technical difficulties like that, There's an easy way to do that. Be sure to leave a super chat to guarantee your question is read on the air and avoid whatever the hell is going on over there. I'm not going to get up anymore. It is what it is. But, of course, Ari Emanuel, I think, told Vince McMahon what he wanted to hear. It is crazy that today's the day has finally come where we're not going to have a McMahon in charge. And people like to think that, it's just it's just making what we already know official. The merger was going to happen. We all knew that Vince McMahon was one day not going to be the majority shareholder in WWE. All of that is true. All of that is fact. I am not denying any of that. However, what I am saying is I don't think that Vince McMahon is long for WWE or long for TKO as an actual person kind of overseeing things. I believe that Vince McMahon will wash out of this deal eventually. Whether it's a year from now, whether it's 6 months from now, we don't know. But you would think that there's way too much going on as far as Vince goes. You have not only the multiple allegations that brought an end to his first run with the company, which lasted 40 years, but then he obviously returned as part of this merger. But you had that. You have a federal investigation going on where he was subpoenaed, where there was a search warrant issued for his home. You have all of these other allegations that are floating around. Most importantly, the Rita Chatterton allegation from the 1980s. You have so much baggage there. And you would think TKO, Ari Emanuel, Endeavor, this new entity, one thing they would 100% want to do is make sure that all of the baggage that came with the previous regime, all of the hoopla, the bad PR, they want all of that gone in a very short amount of time. When these mergers happen, like, this is a reality of those circumstances. They don't want distractions. They don't want things that are in any way, shape, or form going to take away business. And I can tell you straight up, having the CEO, chairman, whatever Vince McMahon's official title with TKO is going to be, having him involved and having him related and having him even in the same breath as some of these disgusting, deplorable, absolutely horrendous allegations, it ain't good for business. Definitely not good for business. We got Bakesta in the chat. What's up? What's going on, man? Saying Riddle may not enter the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was debatable before what happened on Sunday, but what happened on Sunday is very interesting. If we want, we can talk about Riddle, but last thought on Vince McMahon, real quick. As we come up to the final hours of the McMahon-ruled era of WWE, I think one thing that's kind of lost on all of us is how big of a deal this is. This is a company that has been run by essentially one guy, one family, for the better part of the last almost 70 years. Whether it was Capital Wrestling, whether it was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Federation, and now World Wrestling Entertainment. The McMahon family, from Vince Sr. to Jesse McMahon, they have ran it all from day one. They have controlled that Northeast region from day one. And while, of course, WWE lives on in this new entity, TKO, one thing that is true is the era of WWE being a true wrestling company is over. It is over. Because whatever we want to say about Vince McMahon, I think he's a disgusting human being, right? Whatever we want to say about him, one thing is true, even though he would never admit it, at his heart, Vince is a carny. Vince is a carny who loves pro wrestling. And he might not show it in his booking. He might not show it in his actions. But he definitely, at one point, or at his core, even if he doesn't admit it, loves pro wrestling. The people who are going to be in charge of WWE moving forward don't necessarily love pro wrestling. They love the business. as far as the money. They love the corporate side of things. They love to see that they have a content creator that makes money, because that's what WWE is now. With this deal becoming official, WWE is a content creator, not a professional wrestling company. They still have the roots of pro wrestling, don't get me wrong, but that core is now, I think, we can say it's officially gone. It's been diminishing for the better part of the last 25 years. Now it's gone. And I'm not saying that tomorrow WWE is going to be doing, like cartoon crossovers live on Raw or anything like that. But I think that there's going to be a lot more room for change in the way that pro wrestling is presented, in the way that WWE approaches their big shows. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could help grow the business in certain ways, and it could be things that are entertaining. At the end of the day, no matter what we want to say about pro wrestling, Vince McMahon, AEW, Tony Khan, at the end of the day, this is all about entertainment. If you, the audience, are entertained by what's happening, nothing else matters. Because that means that you're getting your money's worth and the promoter did their job. So while things may change, at the end of the day, I hope the core of it, entertainment, stays the same. We'll see what happens. Again, don't suspect any major blockbuster changes tomorrow, but we definitely could see some crossover with UFC. We definitely could see some more crossover with talent that are signed to Ari Emanuel's talent agency. There's a lot more you can do, and especially when you have the money behind it, the WWE does, the notoriety behind it, and now the established names and the established kind of street cred that they get with this deal. It changes things in a certain way, and it could change professional wrestling / WWE, I should say, as we know it. We got Eric Douglas in the chat saying, if Riddle was easier to deal with, do you think he would get an Endeavor contract? I mean, starting tomorrow, he is going to have an Endeavor contract. He is going to have an Endeavor contract. That is just, everyone in WWE is going to be under Endeavor. We got Brutal Honesty Truth Talk in the chat saying, Riddle, no, bro. I mean, this is it is an interesting story. Let's talk about it. So, WWE superstar, former WWE Tag Team Champion Matt Riddle was at the center of some controversy when he posted an image of a TSA officer I think it was a TSA officer. I believe it was. Let's see. It was a Port Authority policeman. So, apologize. This was very interesting. So, I'm going to read the aggregation from New York Post. It says, WWE wrestler Matt Riddle accused a cop of assaulting him at New York City's JFK airport in a since-deleted tweet or a since-deleted Instagram post Sunday. In the post, he rambles a little bit here, but this was... Let me start at the beginning because I'm leaving out some very important context. So Matt Riddle was traveling back to the States from India after Superstar Spectacle. He was stopped at the airport by JFK police, and according to Matt Riddle, they, quote, sexually assaulted him. He said in a now deleted post on Instagram, quote, nothing like being sexually assaulted and harassed at JFK airport. No means no, and just because I'm nice doesn't mean yes, a-hole. Post went on to say, quote, definitely one of the most uncomfortable travel days I've ever had thanks to New York City. You're so progressive and accepting. He obviously meant that last part in a sarcastic form. Officers were called after a, quote, heavily intoxicated Riddle was, quote, acting disruptive as he transferred flights when he was returning from India, where he participated in WWE Superstar Spectacle. Okay, so this is, I want to be very clear about this. I don't know what happened. All we know is that Matt Riddle posted something about this where he claimed he was sexually assaulted by the JFK airport police. They responded by saying that Matt Riddle was heavily intoxicated in their opinion. There is an internal investigation now happening in the JFK police system. WWE has responded by basically taking him off of Raw. He is not going to be at Raw tonight. He has been taking off of house shows for the rest of the week as well. So we're not going to be seeing Matt Riddle on TV for a little bit here, it looks like, until all of this is sorted out. Of course, we should remember that Riddle was given about 6 or so weeks off earlier last year, I believe, due to attending rehab. He was allowed that time off to go attend rehab, get better. And now this comes up. I don't think it's a coincidence that WWE have kind of said, hey, at least we're going to take a step back here, not have you on TV, kind of see where things are. I will say this. If the report that Matt Riddle was intoxicated is true, I genuinely hope that he gets help. And I hope that he goes to rehab. That is way more important than any wrestling show that you could be a part of or anything like that. The latter part of what I'm about to say is that if it is true that he was assaulted in the way that he portrayed in that now deleted Instagram post, I hope whoever did that is held accountable, because that type of stuff is disgusting. And as someone who who is Muslim post 9/11, which very weird day to say that, right? The random security checks and I'll just say this. It wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me. And I don't even think it wouldn't surprise me. That's all I will say. But the other interesting part here is that, or interesting or noteworthy, I should say, part about all of this is Riddle is someone who in the past has been accused of what he said in that now deleted Instagram post. He was once accused of sexual assault. And a lot of people feel like he was never held accountable for it. And while I'm not going to, while in no way I'm trying to disrespect, the alleged victims in that scenario, I think what a lot of people are doing online, as far as like saying in a way like he deserved it or whatever, I don't think anyone, regardless of what you do, deserves to be assaulted like that. I think that if Riddle did do the things that he's accused of, which a lot of people seem to think he did, he should definitely be held accountable for that, because you can't allow for that stuff to happen. Cultural rot has consequences, and one of the things that I think our society has yet to kind of deal with properly is dealing with these assault cases. It shows through our legal system. It shows through like any system of power that you can name has had this problem where powerful people do these things. People who have authority do these things. And it's not right. It's not right. So, again, choosing my words carefully here. I just hope that anyone who has been assaulted, especially in the way that people have accused Matt Riddle, if anyone who has experienced that gets justice. Anyway, Riddle aside, let's move on and talk about the other stuff going on in pro wrestling. There's a lot of news out of AEW. There's a lot of news out of WWE about a former AEW star, most notably CM Punk. Before that, I'm going to remind y'all to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We got someone in the chat saying CM Punk is not returning to WWE and Edge is not going to AEW. Two things that are very well possible. However, the opposite, or I believe, not just as much possible, but I think Edge is 50-50. From what I'm hearing, Edge is definitely 50-50 as far as staying with WWE, re-signing a very lucrative contract there, or going to AEW. I think in a lot of ways, going to AEW makes sense for Edge as far as a legacy standpoint. He can go off, do a lot of things one last time. A matchup against the Hardys, a matchup against the Dudleys, a matchup against the Dudleys and the Hardys, a matchup against the Young Bucks with Christian. Like, there's so much stuff you could do in AEW. So many stories left to tell. The one last time, Ric Flair's last match, the Hardys versus Edge and Christian, like, for the last time. Things you could literally build pay-per-views around. You could, and let me put this one another way. CM Punk is gone from AEW. AEW needs a star, a blockbuster, bona fide star for AEW Collision. Who is someone you can plug and play immediately? It is the rated R superstar Edge. Whether he's called Edge or Adam Copeland, it doesn't matter. That man is going to draw you ratings. That man is going to get you pay-per-view buys. That man is going to draw interest into that program because he's been doing it for 20 plus years. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's great on promos. There's so many stories you could tell with him, Christian, the Hardys, so on. Edge to AEW makes sense for AEW. I think in a lot of ways it also makes sense for Edge. So, in my opinion, it is just a matter of time before it happens. Could I be wrong? Of course. I don't know who Edge is. I don't know the person. I don't know Adam Copeland. I don't know what's going through his mind. All I can do is look at the landscape right now and make a guess. And yeah, I mean, it is just... Look at that. Look at that. They tried to silence me. They tried to silence me for speaking so much logic. That's what happens when your boy is giving his own podcast. The higher ups trying to silence me. Your cheese in the chat says AEW could use Beth Phoenix as well to elevate more women's division. Also, I think so too. Beth Phoenix coming in doing a program would not be a bad idea. I would love to see Beth Phoenix versus Jade Cargill, someone who just returned. Jade Cargill, who is still a bona fide star. Jade Cargill is absolutely awesome. The reaction that the crowd gave her on her return at Collision this past week, electric. The program that she's about to have with herself and Chris Statlander, I can't wait. These are two of my favorites right now. And, you know, I was always wondering when Stat was going to have that program with Jade, when Jade was going to return. And we're getting it. And it's likely that we're going to get it at Wrestle Dream, a show that is going to be in Seattle, Washington, where we're also going to see Zack Sabre Jr. Yes, I call him Sabre. Don't worry, I know it's pronounced Sabre. But Zack Sabre Jr. versus the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Fight me, Internet. I don't care what you say. Bryan Danielson, who main evented WrestleMania 30, who came in and was basically the main event of All Out 2021 when he debuted for AEW, who has main evented big shows for AEW in Revolution 2022. He had that great match at the first Grand Slam with Kenny Omega, some believe to be the greatest TV match of all time. He's the best technical wrestler of all time. He's one of the best promos of all time. He's one of the most beloved superstars, wrestlers, whatever you want to call it, of all time. And he gets it more than I think anyone else in the history of the world has gotten professional wrestling. Bryan Danielson is my GOAT. Fight me, Internet. I have to go into my Bryan Danielson diatribe every other episode, basically. Yes, the sound is back. But yeah, let's talk about CM Punk though, guys. So CM Punk back in the latter half of 2022. This is post all Brawl Out. Post Brawl Out, CM Punk wanted back in WWE. We'd heard reports that Punk was trying to get a buyout with AEW, that he was doing this with the intention of going back to WWE. Of course, back in 2019, Fox, when they signed WWE to that deal for SmackDown, they wanted Punk. They wanted to bring Punk in and have him be the flagship guy on SmackDown. However, it never got that far, even though Fox tried to pay them. He's like, hey, we'll pay the contract. Hey, we're going to bring him in to do this WWE backstage thing. None of that mattered because WWE, at the end of the day, were not going to do it. Vince McMahon, reportedly, this according to Dave Meltzer, who wrote in Sports Illustrated this week, Vince McMahon was the guy who nixed it. He said, no, we're not bringing in CM Punk. We're not bringing him back. It's over. And I think now that he is done in AEW, you're at least going to have that conversation if you're Triple H and Nick Khan and whoever's in charge of bringing talent in. You are going to have that conversation. I think you're lying to yourself if you think that WWE wouldn't at least entertain CM Punk coming over. And I'm not saying that it's signed, sealed, and delivered. It's just a matter of time. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, there is 100% reason to bring in Punk. He is a big star. He is going to draw ratings. His return itself, you could sell those ad spots for way more than you could sell them normally. And that adds value to WWE, that they're able to do that. So, especially at a time where Vince McMahon's role, remember, is in the company is diminishing. And you have, Ari Emanuel, you have Endeavor, whose only interest right now is to make this thing that they just merged and bought with at a valuation of $9 billion. Their main objective here is to make WWE as profitable and as public as it can possibly be. So, to me, if I'm Ari Emanuel and I'm Triple H, I'm sitting at the table and I'm like, all right, how do we do this? How do we do this in the best way? What are the pros and cons? You're having that conversation. CM Punk is too big of a draw, too big of a needle mover, too big of a talent for you not to. I don't know what his AEW contract situation is. I don't know whether, he's got time left on a no compete. If it's he got fired with cause, so I assume that there actually wouldn't be a non-compete, but we don't know. We don't know any of that information right now. It literally just happened about a week ago. What we do know is that CM Punk and WWE have a very contentious relationship. CM Punk, remember, was fired on his wedding day by WWE back in 2014. He was given his severance on his wedding day, which can only be attributed to pettiness on WWE's part. Following that, he, of course, had that Colt Cabana interview where he roasted the company, buried the doctors, which led to a lawsuit between Punk and WWE doctor Chris Amon, who many allege was actually funded by WWE to keep the lawsuit going, drag it out as long as possible, which is the tactic that many companies do when they're either trying to be petty, drag stuff out so people don't listen to it, hear about it, or both. And I think in this case, you could see both sides of that. That lawsuit got very personal. I think the relationship between himself and Triple H, was at an all-time low a few years ago. It does change things when you have Punk, who reportedly wanted to go back to WWE. It does change things that when you have Punk saying or going backstage at a WWE event in Chicago just a few weeks before he was supposed to return to AEW the second time. Remember, Collision was like a week or two away from debuting. CM Punk was a week or two away from the second coming, right? And out of nowhere, like, we just get this news on a random Monday around this time that CM Punk was backstage at WWE Raw. There were pictures floating around about it, that CM Punk was backstage at WWE Raw and that he wanted a meeting with Triple H. And he was told no, and security eventually escorted him out and asked him nicely to leave. But even if he was there to bury the hatchet with some people, bro, you cannot, to quote Vince Russo, bro, you cannot tell me, bro, that he wasn't there to get over and get a contract. He doesn't want to work for rinky-dink AEW. Oh, my God. Now I'm turning into the mayor from The Simpsons. But no, I mean, like, let's be honest here. CM Punk wasn't just backstage to bury the hatchet. CM Punk was backstage to be like, let's feel this out. How does this feel for everyone? In the moment, didn't feel great considering he was signed to AEW, and this is like just under a year after AEW issued WWE with a legal notice and a cease and desist for trying to meddle with contracts and trying to meddle with signed talent. So I think WWE were extra sensitive about that, as they probably should be for legal purposes. So yeah, man. I mean, it's a messy situation. Will CM Punk return? See Liam in the chat. What's up, Liam? Good to see you. Says, Omer, what city is Survivor Series in? It is in the most magical city in the world, Chicago, Illinois. It is not lost on me that AEW, the same week on Wednesday, is running their Thanksgiving show from Wintrust Arena in Chicago, Illinois. It is not lost on me at all. What a hell of a week that would be for Chicago. We got Half-Breeds Wrestling saying, Half-Breed Observer saying, IDK, why is he so difficult? Why is Punk so difficult? I think, like, he said it himself. I can say this. He's a bit of a sweetheart. He's a bit of a diva. He said this something along the lines of this in a interview with Renee Paquette on her podcast, The Sessions. Like, CM Punk basically said, I'm a bit of a sweetheart. You gotta sweet talk me. You gotta do all this stuff. You gotta court me a little bit. Like, he's just a bit of a diva, and sometimes great. Like, look at NFL teams. Sometimes the best players on your team are a bit loud, and they're divas. Like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is not fighting his teammates, right? But he's a bit of a diva. But he also happens to be the best player that the Dolphins have in their entire team. It just be like that. Liam says, who shows up in Chicago? Could be Punk. Could very well be Punk. Liam says, all Endeavor has to do is look into his eyes and see what they see because he's the cult of personality. Ayo. Good one there. Fancy colors, yeah. Fancy colors. Liam also says, all Endeavor has to do is... Okay, you already did that, Liam. We don't need to. Cheese in the chat says, it would be crazy to see CM Punk back in WWE after all those years of following the pipe bomb. Yeah. Following that Colt Cabana interview. Like, Colt Cabana and CM Punk, it's not lost on me. Colt Cabana and CM Punk, to this day, may have... I think that might be the most explosive podcast interview in wrestling history. I don't think there's really much competition for that. The only one that I really put up there as far as like impact and explosiveness it had is the podcast that Jericho and Moxley did upon Moxley's debut in AEW. Outside of that, nothing, man. Like, they're in nothing. Liam says he wanted to be acknowledged. There you go, Liam. You have been acknowledged. Cheese in the chat says, do you feel like Chicago crowd started to turn on CM Punk at All Out? So I was there for both Collision when Tony Khan announced that CM Punk was officially fired, and at the United Center in Chicago when at All Out for that pay-per-view. I was there both nights. And here's what I will say. There were definitely people there who were from Chicago who were cheering on Punk. Here's what I will also say. There were definitely people from Chicago who were cheering on or who were booing every time people started chanting CM Punk, who didn't try to hijack the show, who didn't, go along with the CM Punk chants, and instead fought back with Colt Cabana chants, because Colt Cabana is also a very over wrestler in Chicago. Putting a bow on this, on that question at least, it's weird. Again, All Out is an interesting thing because it's a pay-per-view, and you had so many people traveling in. You had myself traveling in, right? But you could get the sense that there were a lot of people from Chicago who kind of were over it. And I think that's really what people were. A lot of people, I think, are just kind of over this. Whether it's Punk, the Elite, it's just stop. Can we talk about wrestling? And what did AEW do at All Out to quell all of that? They put on one of the best pay-per-views they've ever had, a top 3 AEW pay-per-view easily. And that is saying something when you have the amount of shows and the quality of shows that All Elite Wrestling has put on in the past few years. Answer your question in short, a little bit. They have turned on him, but I think it's more just, man, I just want to talk about wrestling. I just want to watch wrestling. That's really what it's about. We got Observer in the chat saying, it would be great if some wrestlers had the Undertaker's mindset, business first before self-interest. Business first, I think those two can go hand in hand, right? Because you can do what's good for business, but also do what's good for yourself. I think no matter who your employer is, right, unless you're the CEO of the company or in a leadership position like that, I think you should always be looking out for your own self-interest. Because the odds are the company is always going to choose themselves over you. That's just how it is, right? Especially when you're, to take a phrase from wrestling, lower on the card. You should do what's best, what's in your best interest, right? That's just how it is. That doesn't mean that you ignore your responsibilities. That doesn't mean that you become an issue at work where you're fighting your coworkers, physically especially. Doesn't mean you do any of that. Doesn't mean your work gets neglected. But you can do both. And I think CM Punk was in a very unique situation where both were kind of being done for him. Because on one hand, you had Tony Khan basically reportedly kind of giving Punk the reins on AEW Collision. Punk was given a lot of responsibility. He was given a lot of power in AEW. He had the power to send the VP of Talent Relations away from a wrestling show. He had the power to send the VP of Talent Relations, Christopher Daniels, out of the building. On top of that, sure, there were instances where Punk was 100% instigated. I think he was, in a way, instigated by Jack Perry. That does not excuse what Punk did. And I think here's what people I think are losing, get lost in all this, right? I'll say this. How about this? I'll say this because people are going to ask me whenever they see pictures of me and all that stuff. I'm an Elite fan, right? I am a person. One of the big reasons I like AEW is because of the Elite. I was one of those guys who, when the Elite said, we're starting a wrestling company, I was like, oh, hell yeah. This is my type of wrestling. These are 4 of my favorite guys. Let's go. CM Punk is also a big favorite wrestler of mine. For the longest time, he was one of my top 3 favorite wrestlers. And I feel like I'm in a unique position here where I am incentivized as a fan to want both of these sides to work together and do well. So here's what I'll say. CM Punk had a right to have a gripe with certain people in AEW. I think so. He was right to ask questions. He was right to, want certain things addressed. He had no right, though, to put his hands on anyone. Multiple times, allegedly, reportedly, ask Ryan Nemeth if he wanted to take things outside. He had no right to do any of that, especially as someone who was given the reins of power on Collision. At the end of the day, I don't care whether it's wrestling. I don't care. I know the silly world of professional wrestling lives on an island of its own. I don't care if it's, you write tweets for a living. I don't care if you bag groceries. I don't care. No matter what it is, when it gets to the point where you're fighting your coworkers outside of a wrestling setting, outside of a kayfabe setting, backstage, physical altercations, real life physical altercations backstage, at a certain point, it's got to stop. And when you have that one strike where, remember, Punk's other strike, or strike and a half, whatever you want to call it, that same day as Brawl Out was the gripe bomb. Where he went and he buried the company. That's the other thing. CM Punk went out there and buried the company. And it was like literally, you want to count the three biggest things: burying the company live in that press conference in front of Tony Khan. Strike number one. Strike number two, CM Punk going and reportedly fighting the Elite. And according to many people, some neutral parties, CM Punk was the aggressor there. And then, yes, Jack Perry said a line that he probably shouldn't have said. But at the end of the day, it's professional wrestling. CM Punk made a career. The other thing that bothers me about the Punk thing, right? And this is the final time. You guys got me on this rant for the final time. I am done addressing this until I make like a long form video about it. But I am done addressing this in my opinionated manner. Here is my final thing. For someone who made a career out of pushing the envelope as far as what you can say for calling people out on real life things live on TV, it baffles me that CM Punk had a problem with some of the things that were said. Like the Colt Cabana thing, the thing where Adam Page referenced Colt Cabana that went over everyone's head seemingly other than Punk. The fact that he got upset at that, it made no sense to me. Honestly, still to this day, makes very little sense to me. And the fact that it wasn't kind of squashed right there, that might be more of a Tony Khan issue. But the fact that it let Punk bother him to the extent that he felt like he needed to go on that gripe bomb, and to the extent that he felt like Adam Page was not going to do business with him, where he felt like he was in danger, the point where he reportedly, again, Fightful Select last year reported this, that Punk was weighing not going to TV over that. I'm just like, that baffles me. For someone who called out Triple H live on TV for his terrible movies, for being a terrible boss, for calling John Laurinaitis a stooge live on TV, saying you have him do your dirty work for you. For all he said in the pipe bomb, for all he said in every other pipe bomb that he said throughout his career, it baffles me that a guy who made his career off of shooting is this sensitive about other people giving him a little pew-pew. That does not excuse Jack Perry. And I want to be clear. Jack Perry shouldn't have said what he said. Was it entertaining? Yeah. It had people talking. And maybe that was Jack Perry's way of trying to work himself into a program with Punk. Wasn't the right way, just like Punk wasn't right for going after Hangman Adam Page off the air and saying that he can't sell merchandise. Like, at the end of the day, guys, evidence points to one guy didn't want to make it work. And you can say that, he tried to set up a meeting with the Elite. You can say all that stuff. But if he really wanted to make it work, no one would be fighting anyone backstage. And the fact is, Punk found himself at the center of controversy after controversy after controversy throughout his 2 years in All Elite Wrestling. And at some point, it had to stop. And it did. It was a match made in heaven until it turned into a match made in hell. That's what Punk and AEW were. It's unfortunate. I hate it. I wanted Punk to work. I wanted to see Bryan versus Punk one more time. I wanted to see Punk versus Kenny Omega. I wanted to see all the possibilities that were set out before us. And we aren't going to see any of it. And it's CM Punk's fault. It's Tony Khan's fault. It's Matt and Nick Jackson's fault. It's in part, very small part, Jack Perry's fault. But at the end of the day, the common denominator in all of this is CM Punk. Tell me when I'm telling lies. Yachi says, one of the best wrestling analysts. Thank you. I mean, if I'm going to clip this and put it over on the other channel. By the way, guys, this is a new thing. Well, I haven't officially launched it yet or announced it. I have put like a few videos up there. Just like videos. But I am starting a new channel. It's at RTW Clips. So the goal is going to be to clip like videos from this show and some of the other podcasts that I do and put them over on there. Not sure exactly how that's going to work out. Right now, there's a few just videos I made from AEW All Out up there. Those are like, have never been on this channel before. So nice little exclusive there over there at RTW Clips on YouTube, youtube.com/RTW Clips. Go over there and subscribe. Again, I'm still figuring out exactly what I want to do with that channel. So I'm not going to be posting on there too regularly as of right now. However, there's going to be stuff on there. This rant is probably going to go on there, though. I will say this rant is probably going to go on there. Yeah. Again, I love CM Punk, but gosh darn it, dude. Just like, jeez. Like, the other thing that bothers me about it is, man, it really seems like hurt, tired, work with children, like all the stuff he said in the Great Bomb last year. It reminded me of Punk's time in WWE. It reminded me of Punk, and what he had to say about WWE when he left there. Like, he just didn't enjoy it. And if CM Punk really didn't enjoy being in AEW, doesn't enjoy being around wrestling, the man has a lot of money. The man has his TV show about wrestling that he does. He doesn't need it. At the end of and this might just be a situation where it's like, man, just walk away. It obviously doesn't make you happy. Just walk away. It's okay. At the end, no matter what, we could talk about legacy. We could talk about CM Punk not being everyone's favorite person, not being your cup of tea. He's still one of the best to ever do it. Like, that's objective fact. CM Punk is one of the best professional wrestlers to ever do it. On the mic, he's top 3 all time. But, like, at a certain point, right, I don't want to see CM Punk just be a wrestler for the sake of CM Punk being a wrestler, for the sake of him getting a paycheck. I love that for him, and if he's happy doing it, that's great. But if he's unhappy, and if it's just going to lead to this circle of craziness that's been his run in AEW, that was the end of his run in WWE, I don't want it for him. I genuinely don't want it for him. Because the dude seems to care. He seems to care about a lot of the same things I care about. He, he seems like someone that you could hang out with. And I'm not, and I will never get a chance to hang out with CM Punk. I buried him way too much for him to ever take me seriously as a friend. But as in all seriousness, like, this is someone who's given me like hours and hours and hours of entertainment throughout my life. I just want to see him be happy. I just want to see him. Like, if it means walking away from it, just walk away. It's okay. You got heels. You can do that. Again, I'm just a talking head on YouTube. It be like that. Will the vlog be on there? That's a great question, you cheese. Maybe I might put the vlog up on there. Actually, that might make more sense. Yeah, you know what? Yes, the vlog is going up on there, and we'll make an announcement on this channel when it's up. Ice Cream Punk. Heyo. I acknowledge you, Liam. We love you. Well, whew. So again, what else do you guys want to talk about? We got a lot. We've covered a lot, I should say, on this show so far. I think we're pretty much heading down the home stretch of this show. Gonna clock it in at about an hour, so a few minutes left here. If you haven't already done so, this is a great time to smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You want to guarantee your question or statement gets read out on the air, leave a super chat. That's a great way to support the channel and have your voice heard. What else is in the wrestling news? I'm just going to do a quick search live here on Twitter. By the way, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, be sure to leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to. Oh, Ricky Starks actually posted about CM Punk. Public flowers for you, man. That's the other thing. There were some people who, like Roosh, Roosh was the funniest one. Like, there were some people who kind of posted goodbyes to CM Punk in AEW. Roosh's was the funniest because he never said anything about Punk. All he did was like start engaging with posts that were him beating the crap out of Jack Perry. It was really funny. We got, LA Knight is signed to WWE through 2025. Wow, that's crazy. He is signed to WWE through 2025. Sean Rossab says, while talks have been ongoing for an extension for LA Knight and WWE, the two sides are far apart on things. Fightful Select has the full story. Oh, I got to check out that Fightful Select story. I haven't seen that yet. What else we got here? This is all like basically Sean Ross Sapp. I'm just looking up. Will Ospreay's getting an AEW All-In tattoo? That's nuts. That's crazy. That man loves wrestling, and we love him. He's great. All right. Well, not sure we have much else to talk about. We got your cheese in the chat saying Punk leaving will allow more time for other talent in AEW to love the return of CJ Perry. That's not entirely wrong. Like, he does open things up on Collision, and look, I watched this past week's Collision, the first Punkless Collision. I thought it was a good show, or the second, I should say, Punkless Collision. It was a good show. It's a good show, and like, if Brian, look, I'm a mark for Bryan Danielson. I don't care what anyone says. Like, any setting, and if I see Bryan Danielson, I am going to be like, that's the only guy, one of the few guys in this world I will actually be starstruck by. So if you put Bryan Danielson on my TV, I'm going to watch it. Saturday night, like, I don't need to going out. Friends? I don't need all I need is the American Dragon. That's all I need. Because he's the American Dragon. We're not gonna do that. We'll save that for whenever I start a Patreon show. You guys will get all my impressions and stuff. I think that's going to do it for this show. Trying to think, what else do we got? No, they got Monday Night Raw coming up in a little bit, so time for me to get out of your hair. I appreciate all of you who have joined in. Over 100 people joined into the live stream today. I appreciate every single one of you. If you're listening again on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a 5-star review. Go check us out, youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling for all your wrestling-related needs. I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling, signing off. This has been Wrestling with Omer, your cheese, Liam, all the live homies, Observer, all of y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.